Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get
Every
into it.
motorist has faced situations when the battery, which has served faithfully for several years, suddenly refuses to obey, and in response to turning the key in the ignition switch stops responding. Alas, but in winter such situations occur much more often, and it is very difficult to insure against it. And at least in half of cases, the battery failure occurs when you least expect it, and to be without a car means to be late for work or an important meeting, i.e., it threatens serious troubles in life. Today we will consider why it happens, whether it can be avoided, and what to do if the battery is dead and you need to go. Design of lead-acid batteries. As usual, let's start with a little theoretical background, as we are sure that this article will be of no interest except to physicists and battery engineers. The evolution of lead-acid batteries, which are used in the vast majority of modern vehicles, goes back more than a century and a half. The first working prototype, created by Gaston Plant in the mid-19th century, was 2 plates of lead placed in a glass container, filled with sulfuric acid, with a piece of thick cloth as a separator. Alas, but the charge capacity of such a device was so small that it was of no practical use. But the idea itself turned out to be promising, and a long series of experiments began with the composition of electrodes and other components of the device designed to generate electric current as needed. As a result, it turned out that the best suited for these purposes are batteries with lattice-shaped electrodes made of an alloy of lead and antimony. The invention of generators allowed to solve the main problem, how to charge the device without removing it from the car, and at the end of the last century the design of the battery was modified. Calcium was added to the electrode composition, which solved the problem of water evaporation from the electrolyte. This is how maintenance-free batteries came into being, which currently occupy a predominant position in the niche. So how does a lead-acid battery work? Essentially, this device is a secondary source of current generated by the reduction-oxidation reactions between the electrolyte and the electrodes. There are 3 main varieties of batteries of this type, with electrolyte in the form of liquid, aqueous hydrochloric acid solution. They are serviceable/non-serviceable. Serviced batteries use plates made of lead, the main element, arsenic and antimony, as electrodes. A characteristic feature of such batteries is a fairly high rate of water evaporation, which requires periodic refilling, which is the main disadvantage of this type of battery. In hybrid devices, calcium has replaced antimony in the composition of negative plates, which reduced water consumption, and the addition of calcium in the composition of negative plates managed to achieve the creation of maintenance-free batteries that do not require refilling water throughout their life. But they also have a significant disadvantage: poor tolerance to complete discharge, especially at sub-zero temperatures. This is why a maintenance-free battery should not be allowed to sit in the car in winter. In gel batteries, the electrolyte, thanks to the addition of silicon, changes from a liquid state to a paste-like state. Thanks to this, the design of the battery is completely airtight, since the gas released during oxidation reactions does not require an exit to the outside, being distributed in the pores of the gel and assimilated into the sulfuric acid solution during reduction reactions, providing a closed cycle. But even such batteries are far from perfect, as they are very sensitive to external conditions, especially significant temperature changes. They tolerate high loads worse, so the scope of use of gel batteries is limited to backup power sources, and such batteries are rarely installed in cars. AGM batteries are the most advanced batteries to date, combining the advantages of both of the above types. Here, the electrolyte is a liquid, but the internal construction of the battery has undergone significant changes. The solution circulates in a porous fiberglass structure, which has 2 types of pores, large and small in diameter. It is these that ensure the movement of gases in the time interval between the 2 types of reactions. Minor depressurization of such a battery is not terrible, as well as other disadvantages characteristic of its predecessors: temperature difference, full discharge, perceptible vibrations. The only disadvantage of these devices is high sensitivity to the quality of the voltage supplied. The problem is solved by installing a stabilizer, as well as using high-quality chargers. The importance of preparing the car battery for winter. The service life of maintenance-free batteries, which have almost completely replaced their maintenance-free counterparts, is 4 to 6 years. But, provided that the rules of their maintenance are strictly observed. If the car owner looks under the hood only to check the engine oil level, and even then infrequently, you can safely subtract a year or two from the above figures. In any case, the efficiency of a car battery decreases over time, and for this reason it requires mandatory maintenance, especially in winter. The fact is that at sub-zero temperatures, the ability of an already aged battery to give charge drops significantly. The battery is forced to work in such extreme conditions at the limit of its capabilities. And during trips its recharging is already insufficient due to increased, on average, twice as much as in summer, load on the onboard network. The work of various electric heaters and standard heater is affected. That's why in a severe frost any short trip can become an unscheduled load that will not allow you to start the car the next morning. Here are the main reasons why the battery freezes in winter, refusing to fulfill its immediate duties. If you belong to the category of disciplined drivers, then in general the situation looks far from rosy. According to statistics, almost 45% of car owners do not prepare the battery for winter at all. Only 7% of drivers carry out a full-fledged set of measures. The remaining 48% prepare the battery for the upcoming increased loads only partially. Let's list what is included in this set of measures. Many of you have noticed that over time, a whitish, blue, or green-colored plaque forms on the battery terminals. This should be removed in good time because it is copper sulfate, which is produced by the oxidation of the contact group under the influence of hydrochloric acid that has somehow gotten on the terminal. Copper sulfate has poor electrical conductivity, so the normal contact between terminals is broken, which leads to undercharging of the battery with all the consequences when cold weather arrives. Make sure that the battery is always fully charged. Ignoring this rule will sooner or later lead to a complete discharge of the battery, so a periodic check of the capacity is a prerequisite for winter operation. If it is low, the question of whether to remove the battery in frost is no longer relevant. Such a battery needs to be recharged, and if it is not new, this is not enough. At temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius it is really better to keep it warm. Both maintenance and non-maintenance batteries have openings for the release of gases produced by oxidation reactions during charging. Contamination of these openings can lead to increased pressure inside the battery, which can result in damage to the plates or case at the very least. So checking and, if necessary, cleaning these openings should be a mandatory component of the measures to prepare the battery for winter operation. Be sure to check the condition of the wires going to the battery. They should have no visible damage to the insulation layer. In winter, such defects are extremely dangerous. The insulation material is damaged even more by severe frosts, increasing the risk of short circuits. If you have a serviceable battery, a rarity today, but many conservative drivers prefer this type of battery. Be sure to check the electrolyte level, which should completely cover the lead plates. This is also one of the most common reasons why the battery freezes in winter. Read also, types of marks that can be made by traffic police officers on a driver's license, and their meaning. As you can see, there is nothing complicated in preparing the car battery for winter. You only need your discipline and understanding of the consequences of not following these recommendations. How to start the car in winter if the battery is completely dead. Unfortunately, it is impossible to avoid cases when you can't start your car in freezing weather, especially if the battery is not new. What to do in such cases if the car is very necessary? The simplest and most effective way is to put a charged battery instead of a dead one. But this possibility is so rare that this method cannot be mentioned. However, there are many alternative methods to cope with the problem. Let's list them in the order of relevance of use. Tugboat. All you need for this is another car. If you manage to persuade your neighbor in the parking lot, then consider yourself lucky. But only if your car is equipped with a good old-fashioned manual transmission. If you tow a car with an automatic transmission, you risk putting it out of action, and this is one of the most expensive parts of the car. Towing cable. without which such an operation is impossible to perform. It is necessary to carry in the trunk of the car on a permanent basis. Good tape products do not take up much space and are inexpensive. Securely fasten the towing rope, to both cars. In a car with a dead battery, shift the transmission lever into neutral. Make sure that the ignition key is in the lock and turned on to avoid locking the steering wheel. A serviceable vehicle should start driving smoothly, gradually increasing speed. As soon as both cars accelerate to 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, it is necessary to quickly depress the clutch, move the lever to the second speed position, and release the clutch. If the towed car is serviceable, it should start after the jerk. Switch off the gear again. Signal to the driver that you have started. Brake synchronously with the front car until it comes to a complete stop. Put your car on the handbrake. Disconnect the tow rope. After a trip, even a long one, it is highly recommended to fully charge the battery. Rolling. Unfortunately, it is not always possible to find a donor car. In such cases, to start a dead winter battery will help to roll, for the use of which it is necessary to enlist the support of 3 or 4 strong guys. They will act as a driving force, accelerating the car to the required speed. And here, too, there is a restriction on the type of box. It should not be automatic. The algorithm of actions is much the same as the previous one. Get behind the wheel, turn on the ignition, and switch the gearbox lever into neutral. Signal to the assistants that you are ready. After accelerating the car to a speed of about 20 kilometers per hour, depress the clutch. Quickly engage second gear and release the pedal. In winter, one attempt may not be enough, so it is often necessary to invite fresh additional forces. After the car has started, you can immediately go about your business, but the rules of etiquette require you to thank the guys who helped you. So we stop and say thank you to those who pushed us. Note that the lighter the weight of the car, the easier it is to start. It would take about twice as many people to handle a 2-ton SUV. Rolling without the help of strangers, but what to do if there is no one around and you are in a hurry? Random passers-by are unlikely to agree to wait until the necessary number of people, so the previous method of rolling you cannot apply. But you can try to start yourself, provided that your car is standing a couple of meters away from a long and rather steep downhill slope. Your task is to somehow push the car to the hill, accelerate it, and then jump in and put it in gear. We will not recommend this method because it carries a lot of risks. To jump into the cabin on the move, you need to have the appropriate skill. In case of failure, unpredictable consequences are possible, up to accidents. But if you are confident in yourself, why not try? Read also. Causes, effect on the body and elimination of gas emissions. The procedure for starting the powertrain. Engage neutral gear. End ignition. Leave the door open and start pushing the car downhill, resting on the front pillar. As soon as the car reaches the downhill slope and starts to pick up speed, jump into the driver's seat. As soon as the car stops accelerating, quickly engage the second gear and hope for luck. Once again, we note that resort to the help of such an extreme method should be only in cases where there is no other way to start the car, and the possible consequences exceed the existing risks. The cigarette lighter method. What to do when the battery in your car is dead in winter and a friend or neighbor refuses to use towing due to inexperience or for other, in his opinion, objective reasons? Here another quite effective, but also risky method can come to the rescue. Its essence is to start your car from someone else's serviceable battery without removing it. For this purpose, special long enough wires are used, and the method itself, if the correct sequence of actions is observed, does not threaten irreversible consequences for the onboard electrical system. The donor car should be brought as close to yours as possible, so that the hoods of both cars were next to each other. Turn off the donor car, turn off the ignition on both cars, and open the hoods. Connect both batteries with alligator wires, making sure that the plus goes to the plus and the minus to the minus. Connect the wires to the charged battery first, and only then to your own. If you connect a wire to the negative terminal of a discharged battery, there will be increased sparking. If you are afraid of this, you can connect the wire to any unpainted metal surface, such as the cylinder block. Start the donor engine. Let it run at medium speed for 5 to 10 minutes. Turn off the engine and try to start your vehicle without removing the wires. If the attempt is unsuccessful, after connecting the wires, The donor car should be started and accelerated intensively for at least 10 to 15 minutes. The donor is turned off, but the wires are not removed. Try to start the car with a dead battery if the attempt was unsuccessful. Repeat the procedure, increasing the revolutions and recharging time up to 15 to 20 minutes. When your car starts, carefully remove the wires in reverse order. In severe frost, this method may not work, because when the battery is completely discharged at idle, even with a boost, it will not be possible to charge it. The method is effective when the engine is in good working order and the ambient temperature is not below 5 to 10 degrees of frost. Using charging and starting devices. STBs are special electrical devices that allow you to start the engine on a vehicle with a completely dead battery. There are mobile and stationary devices. Mobile ones are characterized by high weight, as their design includes their own battery. Stationary starting and charging devices require a 220V outlet. Unfortunately, such devices are much more expensive than an ordinary charger, so the method has not been widely spread. New battery, yes. If you live in a metropolis, then for sure a specialized store where you can buy a new battery is located in walking distance. From you will only need to have the necessary amount, and this solution can be considered a cardinal way to solve the problem, at least for the current winter. Recharging the battery at home or in the garage, we put this method in the last place, as it is applicable only if you need the car not urgently. Is it possible to bring the battery home in winter and charge it immediately? Yes, of course, but only if the electrolyte is not frozen. If frost has formed on it, it is better not to risk it and let it stand at room temperature for at least 60 minutes. Considering that the full charging process will last about 12 to 14 hours, 1 hour does not matter. Why does the battery drain faster in winter? There are many factors that reduce battery capacity at sub-zero temperatures. Let's mention the most significant ones: pre-start activities, heating of seats, windows, mirrors, interior, require the use of more current than the generator can provide, so the lack is compensated by the battery, which is discharged instead of gaining capacity. The same can be said about winter driving in traffic jams. A constantly switched on heater, rear window heater, and headlights are powerful current consumers. A poorly tensioned alternator belt is one of the main reasons for undercharging the battery when the engine is running. The battery capacity in severe frosts quickly drops in case of unsuccessful attempts to start the power unit. At -20 to 25 degrees, the battery with reduced electrolyte density simply freezes. We should also note such a moment as a poorly fixed battery. As a result of shaking in severe frosts, the active substance from the plates shakes off much more intensively. Here are some tips that will help you to postpone the moment when you will have to ask your neighbor in the parking lot to give you a light. If you leave the car for a long time, more than 10 to 15 minutes, be sure to turn off all power consumers, including parking lights, car stereo, heater, lighting devices. Before a sharp drop in temperature, try to recharge the battery to prevent a critical drop in electrolyte density. In severe frost, before starting the engine, turn on the parking lights for about 20 seconds. This will allow the electrolyte to warm up a little. If you often drive in traffic jams, know that 20 to 25 minutes of continuous driving will be required to partially recharge the battery. If this mode is not observed, the battery will not recharge after such a trip. Finally, information on how quickly the car battery discharges at 10-degree frost. If you leave the parking lights on for 4 to 5 hours, with the headlights on, in 1 hour, the emergency alarm system and the stereo will drain the battery in 5 hours. And we are talking about a new and fully charged device. In real life, these figures should be reduced by 1.5 to 2 times. In conclusion, dealing with a dead car battery in cold weather can be challenging, but with the right steps, you can get back on the road safely. Remember to check your battery's health regularly, keep jumper cables handy, and consider investing in a portable jump starter for emergencies. If you find yourself in a bind, don't hesitate to ask for help or call a professional. Stay warm, stay safe, and ensure your vehicle is ready for the winter months ahead. Thank you for watching, and drive carefully.